News. Wherever the big news story is happening, we're geared up to break it. TVC News, first with breaking news.
It's Friday morning in Lagos. Good morning, everyone. Thank God it's Friday. The slogan, however, is Happy New Year, the very first day in 2021. Compliments of the season to you, and congratulations, you made it. Amazingly, 10 hours, 37 minutes gone already in the day. And in the year, and I'm looking forward to a great year, as well as a great time for our dear country, Nigeria. But remember that you and I do have a responsibility. It is not the year or the calendar changing that will change anything. It is you and I deciding to do something different with our lives. Welcome on board, and we'll be talking about Mr. President's speech on New Year Day, giving some gleam of hope in the new year, given how challenging the outgone year has been for Nigeria and indeed the entire world. Let's begin with an excerpt from that particular speech, and we'll be joined subsequently by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs to discuss in detail exactly what the President has said vis-a-vis what we have experienced. We will also open the phone lines for our viewers on New Year Day to talk about their reaction to Mr. President's speech. We'll take that, and I'll be right back.
Of the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, addresses the nation to usher in the year 2021.
My fellow countrymen and women, first, I would like to thank and praise the Almighty who saw us through the year 2020 and has given us the opportunity to witness the start of another new year. We especially thank God because the year 2020 was one of the most trying years since our existence as a nation. This can also be said about all other nations around the world due to the challenges posed on our collective humanity by the novel COVID-19 pandemic. While acknowledging that 2020 was a very tough year, we saw this year put to test our national resilience and ability to survive these tough times, and also give renewed hope that we will again brave any storms that lay ahead in 2021 and beyond. As we celebrate the opportunity before us in the new year 2021, we must also acknowledge the passing away of our brothers and sisters who didn't make it into this new year. May their souls rest in perfect peace. We must remember that we also celebrated the historic occasion of our 60 years as an independent and sovereign country on October 1st, 2020. In the spirit of hope and gratitude, I would like to remind us again that as a country on the difficult journey to nationhood and greatness, we have confounded the many pundits at home and around the world who never gave the newly born country that emerged onto the world stage on the 1st of October 1960 a chance of surviving much longer than a few years. Yet, here we are, 61 years by the next anniversary in October. And not only are we here, we are standing tall in the Committee of Nations as one country, united under the will of God, and also actively growing that indivisible Nigerian spirit that has enabled us year after year, decade after decade, to weather all stormy waters and emerge stronger and better where others have fallen and disintegrated. This nation, this Nigeria, will survive and thrive. In this journey to nationhood, we have experienced the highs and the lows. 2020 indeed came with a lot of challenges ranging from security and economic issues across the regions to understandable protests that were mainly led by youth and served notice to the demand for police reforms and accountability. This government heard, this government listened, and this government is committed to fulfilling the 5 demands of our youth, fully understanding that we all wish well for Nigeria. In the midst of all these challenges, I had initially pledged that as your elected President and Commander-in-Chief, I would ensure that these ongoing challenges will be faced head-on with renewed determination and with all the appropriateness and urgency required. Your voices have been heard, and we will continue to listen to you and all the key stakeholders who are committed to the unity of Nigeria to ensure that every region of this nation is safe for us all, while guaranteeing that the future is also secure for the coming generation. I wish to also use this occasion of New Year to reaffirm my commitment to the people of Nigeria, especially the youth who need our collective encouragement and support. In securing this nation, we need to secure the future of our youth. Our young people are our most valuable natural resource, at home and abroad. Their ingenuity, creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurial spirit is evident to all. Many of our young people are excelling in various spheres of life, including sports, entertainment, information and communication technology, commerce, and are globally recognized as achievers. As a government, we are committed to actively engaging with the creative energies of our young people. In this regard, we will partner with the legislature to develop an enabling environment to turn their passions into ideas that can be supported, groomed, and scaled across regions. This will create vast opportunities in fintech, agriculture, business process startups, and in the entertainment industry. The year 2021 will indeed be a year where we will work to reinforce the hopes of fellow Nigerians in the vision of a united and progressive Nigeria. This administration will continue focusing on delivering key strategic priorities under our C: security, economy, and anti-corruption agenda. Some of the key priority areas we will direct our attention and strength to include re-energizing and reorganizing the security apparatus and personnel of the armed forces and the police with a view to enhance their capacity to engage, push back, and dismantle the operations of both internal and external extremists and criminal groups waging war against our communities in some parts of the country. In line with the current security challenges we are facing as a nation, I would like to reiterate the promise I made recently when over 300 of our boys abducted from Government Science Secondary School, Kankara, were successfully rescued by our security operatives. The professionalism shown by our security forces and the collaboration from all stakeholders across both state and federal governments that led to the successful rescue of the boys is proof that Nigeria has the internal capacity to decisively deal with terror attacks on our citizens. However, we recognize that we rapidly have to move to a more proactive and preemptive posture to ensure that these sorts of traumatic incidents do not become a norm. Our administration is fully aware of the responsibility we have to protect the lives and property of all Nigerians, and we will not relent in learning and adapting to changing threats to our national security and civic well-being. On economy, our focus on revamping the economy through the national economic diversification agenda that supports the primary goal of national food self-sufficiency. This has helped reduce the growing food-related inflationary figures and have in considerable measure positively impacted on our food security status during the long months of the pandemic lockdown. We are also currently rebuilding our national infrastructure base and in the process introducing transformation through the rehabilitation, modernization, and expansion of the railway system, national roads, and bridges both in rural and urban centers alongside the airports and seaports. The reforms we have put in place in the power sector would guarantee increased efficiency in our drive to significantly expand the generation and distribution of electricity for use in homes and factories. As an administration, we are currently undertaking a series of social interventions designed to boost job creation and support the entrepreneurial drive of our youth. With the recent opening of our borders, we expect that the pent-up demand of legitimate cross-border and international trade will boost the fortunes of the many small businesses and agricultural enterprises that depend on Nigeria trade and commerce. The message to our West African neighbors is that Nigeria is once again fully open for those willing to conduct business in a fair and equitable way. On the anti-corruption drive of our administration, we have recorded substantial gains so far and this year. We are committed to continuing along the path of eradicating corruption through collaboration with all the arms of government to effectively prosecute this fight. While we would be working with the legislature to enact laws that will strengthen this fight, we will also be looking at reviewing some of our laws which will ensure that this fight is more effective. On the part of the executive would ensure the diligent and timely prosecution of corruption cases while appealing to the judiciary to ensure that corruption cases are dispensed with expeditiously. The persistence of various forms of violence has meant that in the most affected parts of the country, the fabric of inter-communal harmony woven through years of investment, of effort at building trust, mutual respect, and harmony has been threatened. Insecurity as a challenge has direct repercussions on our national economic stability, growth, and development, setting us back at critical points through the destruction of public and private investments. In parts of the country where chronic poverty, social exclusion, and disillusionment among sections of the youth were already a problem, the circles of violence that have been unleashed by mindless groups like Boko Haram and others have thwarted the efforts of government to undertake the social policy and associated investments that could make a huge difference in the quality of life of our citizens. I am aware that for some of our compatriots, the progress we have registered since the inception of this administration is not nearly as fast or as efficient as they would wish. I do not begrudge them their views insofar as they signify a wish in which we all share, for only the very best is for our country. Nevertheless, I call upon all Nigerians to carefully recall the circumstances of our coming to office, the facts on the ground, and the resources at our disposal since 2015 with the accomplishments of this administration. As a people, we have shown admirable resilience in the face of every adversity and unmatched capacity to recover speedily from every setback, and unparalleled generosity of spirit when we resolve our differences, and a constant readiness to invest faith and hope in the destiny we share as a united country built on the diversity of its peoples. It is these attributes that underpin the Nigerian spirit of can do, will do, that gives me hope that we shall yet get to the destination and fulfill our calling together, especially with the solid resolutions we are setting in this new year. Keeping our country on a forward march is a duty which we all have and share. In this regard, keeping our country safe from a resurgent cycle of COVID-19 as this administration finalizes its plans to procure and efficiently and effectively distribute the COVID-19 vaccines, I urge you all fellow citizens to observe strict COVID-19 prevention protocols. As you are elected president, my pledge to you is the same as it has always been. I will play my part fully and without fear or favor. I invite all of us to do the same. It is what we owe to the founding generation of our beloved country and also to the coming generation. It is what we desire for national prosperity, for all demands. Long live the Nigerian spirit of oneness, togetherness, and unity. Long live the Federal Republic of Nigeria. A happy, prosperous New Year. May God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, there. So we brought you the full clip because we know that many of you slept late and might have missed the first broadcast. Let's bring in from Abuja the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs, Ajuri Ngelale, to talk more about this new development. Happy New Year, Mr. Ngelale.
Happy New Year to you, my dear brother, and of course, Happy New Year to all of our viewers.
Well, good to see you again. According to the President, 2020 was a tough year that put to test our national resilience and our ability to survive tough times. You recall the issue of pandemic, insecurity, and economic recession. But I want us to begin with his reaction to the NSAS protest. According to Mr. President, it was an understandable protest led by young people to serve notice to the demand for police reforms and accountability. According to him, government heard, listened, and is committed to fulfilling the 5 demands. But is there a sense to which identifying with the allegations of killings during this protest?
That's right, Nifemi. Thank you very much once again. It was very, very evident in President Muhammadu Buhari's remarks that we have...
Well, so there's a delay, and I just want to identify precisely the question that I'm asking. I want to know if there's a sense, Mr. Ngelale, to which identifying with the allegations of killings during the NSAS protest would have further enriched the trust of young people in the president's speech. Well, we understand that there's a brief delay. We're going to fix that and get the Senior Special Assistant to the President back on the show. The President actually touched on quite a number of things, particularly the issue of fighting insecurity, rebuilding the nation's economy, and also fighting corruption, which apparently were the 3 issues he campaigned with as far back as 2015. He also did mention about his plans for youth development, particularly actively engaging youthful energy, which according to him is perhaps the greatest resources that the country has now. And you want to also recall the unemployment rate of the second quarter of 2020 increasing to about 27.1%. We're going to be looking at the issues of efforts by government to resolving all of these issues last year, vis-a-vis what the promises are in the brand new year. Don't forget the fact that our economy is still largely dependent on the production of oil, and we still have the oil price benchmarking the efficiency of our appropriation bill and also the number of barrels that we produce on a daily basis. So it begs the question of what he actually meant when he talked about the economic diversification agenda, which seemed to have become continually remain a popular slogan in this part of the world. We're going to be speaking with the SSA on government strategies this time and what precise steps they are taking to convince Nigerians that this is beyond just paying lip service. We understand that the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs, Ajuri Ngelale, is right back online. I was asking you, Mr. Ngelale, about the fact that the President did not mention or talk about allegations of killing during the NSAS protest, and also how that would have endeared young people who watched events unfold in the outgone year to perhaps believe in what he is saying about young people in the new year.
Thank you very much. So there's really no doubt about the fact that if you listen very carefully to President Muhammadu Buhari's remarks this morning, it was really an attempt to reach out. The president reached out not just to young people, but Nigerians from all parts of the country and, of course, all around the world that may agree and who also may disagree with, the various components of what makes up the progress that this administration has been able to bring to the country over the course of the last 5 years. But more specifically, when we talk about the NSAS protests, the president was very clear in stating and affirming and recognizing the legitimacy of the cause of our young people as they went out to protest for their rights, obviously, and for the correction of police conduct that up until now had not been to the standard that we would all like to see it at. And so I think that that's a very important recognition. And beyond recognizing the legitimacy of those protests and of the cause, we also heard the president make very clear that all 5 demands made by the young protesters across the country have not only been agreed to, but they have already begun, core implementation. When you talk about, obviously, the establishment of judicial panels of inquiry around the country, we've seen several other measures ensuring that every element of those demands have been answered. And so in affirming that, I think our young people are now charged with, really taking government by the hand and moving together to see through to the implementation, the full implementation of all of those agreements and obviously the satisfaction of those demands that were made.
Well, the president also talked more about the youth. I believe that you're also representing young Nigerians. Well, except your looks are deceptive. You look quite young yourself. And he has said that he would actively engage the creative energies of the young people, which according to him are the most valuable natural resources at home and abroad. But let us consider the figures. The unemployment rate appears to be on the increase, with millions of young Nigerians remaining unemployed, not to talk about several others who were rendered idle by the longest industrial action that we have witnessed since 1999. How optimistic are you, or should Nigerians be, to this renewed commitment to young Nigerians by the president?
Thank you very much, Nifemi. Well, when we talk about the commitment of President Muhammadu Buhari and his administration to our young people, I would say that it's important not just to listen to what I have to say or to listen to what the administration has to say, but to really take a look at what the administration has done in action, because it's on the basis of that action that you will now begin to project forward as to the seriousness and credibility of what it is the administration is saying as it relates to youth empowerment and development. We have come into a situation where in 2015 this administration took office at a time of obviously depressed international oil prices, depressed revenues, at a time when we had inherited a recession. And obviously from that point we have been able to take unprecedented steps to ensure that our youths are not just recognized but empowered. Does that mean that we are where we want to be? Absolutely not. There's still a lot of road to travel, but I want to be very specific in what I'm talking about. The 500,000 young graduates in this country who had been employed through the N-Power scheme, given skills, given capital. We have a significant portion of the first batch A and B that have gone on to start very successful micro and small and medium scale enterprises in this country. If you look even beyond that, in terms of access to credit, what we've done, we've been able to mobilize about 400 billion naira through the Bank of Industry to get to hundreds of thousands of MSMEs that are being run by our young people. When you talk about the financial tech industry that's burgeoning in Lagos State right now, when you talk about the creative arts, what we're doing in terms of even the new 75 billion naira National Youth Investment Fund that we're putting in place specifically to cater to the ingenuity and the creative brilliance of our young people. These are measures being put in place in recognition of the fact that we do have these challenges when we talk about the unemployment rate and most specifically youth unemployment. So the point I'm making is I think if you look at the totality of what we've done, particularly most recently with the Survival Fund, where we took an unprecedented step, not just in the history of Nigeria, but in the history of Africa, of providing payroll support for workers within tens of thousands of MSMEs across the country. And these are not loans, by the way. These are grants, meaning they will not have to pay them back. We're paying the salaries of up to 400,000 workers across about 90,000 MSMEs all over the country, many of which are owned and run by young people.
So I understand the special interventions that you have enumerated are designed to boost job creation and support the entrepreneurial drive of young Nigerians. But part of this initiative, you mentioned End Power earlier. We have reported several protests and several challenges with some of these initiatives. Young people protesting that the stipends haven't been paid, and the possibility of them not enjoying permanent employment by government. There were issues with trader money and several other efforts in this regard. What do you think should be done to tidy up the process? Okay, so we see that government attempts to do this, but when you go to the grassroots, those people who are supposed to be the beneficiaries, some of them seem to have a different tale to tell.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, we understand that over the course of this country, which is long and winding, we've had several initiatives that we have seen. I'm talking particularly under previous administrations that were hijacked by political interests and politicians. It's because we understood that history and because we wanted to avoid repetition of that history that we were very mindful and intentional about leveraging on information and communication technology in such a way that we can mitigate, if not entirely remove, the impact of some of these special interests on programs and policies and initiatives that the president is determined to get down to the base of our society. And what do I mean by that? Look at NPower and how it was done. What did we do? We opened up a web portal where we can even the playing field. It's not about knowing a minister, a senator, a governor, a president, or a presidential aide. It's about putting your information in there regardless of your political persuasion, regardless of any other consideration, and giving yourself an opportunity to participate in the national development process. It's as a result of that that we had the kind of wide buy-in to the point where you now have youths asking for more. And that is why the president has graciously approved over the last few months the expansion of the NPower program from the initial 500,000 to now over 1 million. And I want to just emphasize that this is just a drop in the bucket. We understand that the youth unemployment problem and the unemployment problem generally in the country demands much more work, which is why we're taking a multifaceted approach to it. If you look at, for example, the 774,000 special public works program that we're putting in place that's launching this month, where we have 1,000 young people being recruited across every single local government area of the Federation, ensuring equitable distribution of jobs and benefits, that's going to enable our young people to not only access capital and skills acquisition, but it's also going to enable them take direct, a direct role and stake in the national development process. These are young people who are going to be constructing very strategic roads that we've identified, linking farms to markets, linking industries to ports. And we're very excited about the fact that our young people are showing so much interest in engaging in these new opportunities. And I think I should just mention very quickly that if you also look at the economic sustainability plan at large, both what we're doing in terms of the National Social Housing Program, the portal for which we launched just 2 weeks ago, we're building 300,000 houses over the next 12 to 16 months, creating 1.8 million direct jobs in the process, many of which will go to our young artisans, young engineers, young architects, young quantity surveyors, young plumbers, carpenters, electricians across this country. So there's really a lot in store, and we are very excited about what 2021 is going to bring to the people of this country.
I like the way you've enumerated your points. In the course of the program, we'll open the phone lines and identify with people if all of these things you're saying really have trickled down and have impacted positively on the life of the average Nigerian. But it does appear that Mr. President is sticking to his 2015 priorities under the acronym C fighting insecurity, developing the economy, and also anti-corruption. Particularly, he has now mentioned the re-energizing and reorganizing of the security apparatus and personnel of the armed forces of the police. Does this mean that we're going to eventually see a change of hands? Many people have said the service chiefs have done 6 years or more. Given all of the insecurity challenges that the devil does in 2020, it's time to introduce some new ideas. Is this exactly what you think the president was saying?
Thank you very much. If I may, you know, when we talk about security, and the president has been very open about this. In fact, he stated just a few days ago that for us, when we look at public analysis in the country, there's a tendency to really make very complex situations oversimplified, to be oversimplified. And I think one of the things we've seen is, there's this notion that's been floated out in kind of some of the public discourse that if we just sack security chiefs, that's going to solve all of our problems. And what the president has said is that the issue of security, the issue of national defense, is deeper than just a few individuals who have been tasked with overseeing very critical arms of our armed forces, that it goes into issues of capacity building. It goes into issues of regional cooperation with our neighbors, understanding that when you're dealing with the kinds of asymmetrical warfare, tendencies that we're dealing with the enemies we're dealing with right now, even if we had, and this is just a statement of a hypothetical statement, even if we had a divine army that was perfectly run with everything perfect, and we did everything right in dealing with these terrorists, we have to understand that as long as these terrorists have a safe harbor, if they can go to Chad, if they can go to Cameroon, and they can go to Niger Republic and gather themselves and recharge themselves and train themselves just to come and spring these hit-and-run attacks within Nigeria and then run back, then we're going to continue to have problems irrespective of how effective our armed forces are being. So that's really important to understand. The other part of it is when the president is looking at the national defense picture, aside from noting the very clear, in terms of casualty figures, this has been made very well known, that if you look at just the core casualty figures, the data, there has been a very clear improvement from what we were seeing between 2011 and 2015, from what we've seen from 2015 to 2020. Again, we're not clapping for ourselves. We're not satisfied with that. We understand that as long as this nation is insecure in any measure, that we are not going to be satisfied with our progress, which is why we're working very hard to equip our armed forces for the difficult work they have to do, and understanding that we did not come from a place where we're building on a level ground. We're talking about 40 to 50 years of neglect and deficit. We're talking about 40 to 50 years of consistent misappropriation of resources that should have gone to building our indigenous capacity to build armored personnel carriers, light weapons, protective gear, and all of these other, not to speak of the infrastructural facilities, buildings, ICT facilities for our armed forces, for our intelligence agencies. We are coming from a mega deficit that we're having to build out of with very limited resources. The president has done that. He has been able to revive the Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria. We're already producing our own armored personnel carriers in Ogun State now, drones in Kaduna State, our own light weapons. All of these things have been achieved under the watch of the security chiefs that are, usually being lambasted in the public domain. So yes, I can understand the viewpoint that change may be necessary and changes would be welcome, etc. But the president does not have the luxury of shallow analysis. He's the president of the country. He has intel that nobody else has, and he's going to make decisions not just as the commander-in-chief, but as a general, as a retired general, that are in the best interest of the national security of this country. And I believe that we're very fortunate to have somebody of his experience, wisdom, and capacity to be able to guide us out of the challenges that we're currently facing.
I like the passion with which you express your conviction. And I also understand the first part of the commentary about the complexity of the challenges rocking insecurity. However, changing hands right now would not only mean coming up with new strategies, it will also mean that government is listening to the people that it leads. So it might not have time for shallow analysis, but call it shallow or not, it is what the people feel. And it is listening to them that also will further enrich their trust in government. But I want us to quickly take a look at what the president said, attributing the release of the over 300 Kankara boys to the professionalism shown by the security forces. Does this categorically nullify reports that ransom was paid for the release of these boys?
Thank you very much, Nefemi. You know, when you look at the total picture of what's happening in the country, and you mentioned the security, economy, and anti-corruption, but on the issue of security now, I want to be very precise in stating that in no way, shape, or form am I undermining or downplaying the legitimate criticisms that some people have had as a result in terms of what approaches we might be able to implement on the national security question. There are people who have very legitimate and very well-founded and well-grounded assertions about what could be done differently and all of that. And I don't want to downplay any of that when I was referring to shallow analysis. I'm just referring to the notion that has been out there for some time now that if you simply change the security chiefs, voila, everything is uhuru. And we are saying that that is not the case because we understand the threat to be much more diffuse and much more complex than that. Now, with that said, if you look very carefully at the statements made by President Muhammadu Buhari this morning, what you would have seen as well is a recognition that where there are individuals who have differences, who have very constructive criticisms and solutions as to how we can more expeditiously find our way out of the challenges that we're all confronting as a nation, that these are welcome. And that is why you've seen, whether it has to do with the economy, whether it has to do with security, you've seen the president actively embrace think tanks that are coming from outside of government. For example, on the security questions, the president engages very significantly with the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, for example, on expert analysis on perhaps what can be done differently. He takes these assertions and positions very seriously from the outside of government. If you look at the economy, it was this administration that put in place the Presidential Economic Advisory Council, where you have a series of intellectuals and private sector actors and academicians who have come on board to advise the president from outside of government on what can be done perhaps differently. So the president has proven himself to be somebody who listens very closely to advice, and especially when it's constructive, especially when it's well thought out and it's well considered. And on to the point of the Kankara boys, obviously we're very relieved. There's no doubt about the fact that that was a major kind of victory for us in terms of what could have gone wrong and what actually happened. There's no doubt that that was a marked departure from what we saw in 2014 with the abduction of the Chibok girls. And I believe the difference that can be accounted for by the difference in approach of the administrations in question who were in charge at the time. One administration kind of turned a blind eye and denied that it even happened for a period of time. We lost very precious time during which we lost track of so many of the young girls. You saw this time when it happened, immediately it happened, government owned up to it. We acknowledged that yes, this has happened. We were open with our people about the fact that this has happened. And most importantly, the president and of course the armed forces took very swift and dramatic action in conjunction with our partners in the intelligence community to make sure that Chibok does not repeat itself.
And
as a result,
very clearly,
we obviously
Mr. Ngelale, if I can just quickly butt in, I know that there's a little delay in our conversation, but my question precisely, except you consider that information classified, is that the position of Mr. President this morning attributing the release of these boys to professional collaboration on the part of security forces. Does it nullify the news or the reports that we've heard that ransom was paid for their release?
Oh, thank you very much, Nafemi. Quite honestly, when you asked the question the first time, because we're dealing with a bit of a communication challenge, I actually did not hear that part of the question. I would have answered it from the beginning. So on the issue of, on the question of ransom negotiations, or whether or not there were ransom negotiations, I think that what we have very publicly stated is that we required every input from the international intelligence community, from the non-government sector, from our neighboring, our friends across the border, as well as intelligence gatherers, even at the state government level, who collaborated with federal forces. So it was a team effort. As to whether or not money was paid or money changed hands and all of that, I believe that if any such negotiation was undertaken or any such money changed hands, it would be very likely that our people would have gotten the details of it, whether overtly or whether covertly. In the absence of that, I would have to believe that that did not take place. But as far as I'm aware, that has not taken place.
I must say a big thank you. Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs, Ajuri Ngelale. Happy New Year to you. And let me add that you look really good this morning. Have a great year ahead.
Thank you very much, Nafemi, and thank you for all the excellent work you do in bringing us the news and tough questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right, so we'll take some time. We'll have a few more minutes to go on the program to open the phone lines for our viewers for their comment on President Buhari's New Year speech. Bear in mind the fact that we did not touch on his promise for economic diversification agenda, which appears to have been on the front burner for many years. The fact that our border still relies a lot more on oil production. We still rely on crude sales for a larger percentage of our foreign exchange earnings, and diversifying the economy is really a big deal, and the challenges ahead of us would mean that we need to do something very quickly, given the dwindling, or rather how very unstable the price of oil has been. Bear in mind also that we're hearing news that oil might just be expiring soon, with alternatives and solar and electricity that is now being witnessed in developed countries. The president also indeed talked about progress that have been made thus far since the advent of his administration. He pointed to the fact that some patriots believe that his progress has been slow. One way or the other, it would appear that the president acknowledges, and I'm going to just take that excerpt and read it to you. I'm aware that for some of our compatriots, the progress we have registered since the inception of this administration is not nearly as fast or as sufficient as they would wish. I do not begrudge them for their views insofar as they signify a wish in which we all share for only the very best of our country. But in another breath, just immediately after that, he also reminded us of the circumstances and the challenges that were evident at the advent of his administration in 2015. He made mention of the fact on the ground and the resources of our disposal since 4 or 5 years ago. The big question remains if that is still relevant, and if really that wasn't the reason why the Buhari administration was elected in the first place some 6 years ago. We have a caller now from Imo State. Good morning, Kenneth.
All right, good morning.
Please go ahead with your contribution. You have a few seconds.
Okay, please. Ajuri Ngelale made mention of economic development and diversification. See, all the railway programs that are going on in the country by the Minister of Transportation. Okay, you see that no railway have linking from west to east. And you see all the container trucks go every day from west to east, especially from Lagos to Onitsha, to Owerri, to Aba, to Umuahia. Will anything be wrong? Will Nigeria afford? If Minister of Transport will consider these routes, knowing to their economic activities go on in the east from the west, you see many accidents on the road because of too much of truck going from the west to the east. I know businessmen are there in the east, especially in Igos. Now, but government is building a way to all the way to Niger Republic. Why there are no railway linking all these areas? These things can save our road. There's too much pressure on the road, but because these things are not linked, Minister of Transportation is not considering all these things. Rather, he's favoring in the north. Now, Finally, I want to say something about the Empower and all the grants Mr. Ngelale talked about. You see, politicians have hijacked all these things. As I speak to you now, thousands in the state who apply did not get one kobo. Please tell them like that. They should credit direct their accounts and not going through one form of microfinance or the other. People are not getting this thing. Please tell them we are not getting it, sir. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for your contribution from Imo State. We must also say a big thank you to everyone who has seen this program and who have watched this morning in the year 2020 with Uncle Yuri. We appreciate your commitment, and we are further committed to ask the tough questions and make the facts bare for you to decide. Don't forget that we cannot keep doing the same thing the same way and expect a different result. Happy New Year, everyone. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. See you again on Monday.
At TVC News, wherever the big news story is happening, we're geared up to break it. TVC News, first with breaking news.